Hello, bonjour and welcome to your new Bonheur Private Wines video. Today I want to answer a simple question many wine lovers are wondering about. How long can vines that are cropped to make grapes for winemaking, of course we're talking about here, how long those vines can live for. And I want to touch on briefly the life cycle of a vineyard as well. How long after planting do you actually get a decent crop? How young vines, can produce grapes. How young can they be before they start producing? The benefits of old vines, these type of things. Let's go. The question is simple, but the answer is twofold. In short, it depends. What does it depend on? Well, how dry the climate is. So to keep our answer simple here, let's consider the two extreme scenarios. In a relatively rainy environment and climate, like in Bordeaux or Burgundy in France, or certain parts of Oregon and Washington where it rains quite a bit, on the Atlantic coast of Spain or in the UK, for example, yes, they do produce wine in the UK, vineyards are very vigorous, we say. They grow very green and very quickly, large leaves and everything. They also tend to produce a lot of grapes. So vines tire up more quickly. In those regions, a grower will have to consider pulling out the old vines and replant the entire vineyard after about 40 years, because yields will start decreasing too much to remain economically viable when the vines are too old. Here, young vines will produce a lot because there's a lot of water, but their production will decrease quite quickly after just a few decades. On the opposite hand, in very dry climates, like in central Spain, in inland parts of California, like in Lodi, or in the extreme altitude vineyards of Argentina, indeed, the near absence of water forces vines to grow very slowly and produce very little crops, so vineyards age slower and longer. Just like, the olive trees can grow for centuries because they grow really slowly. Same case here. In those semi-arid areas, vines reach 80 years old, 100 years old, 150 years old in extreme cases, and they still produce a decent amount of grapes, not huge amounts, but decent yields considering those areas produce low levels of crop to start with. So old vines in dry climates take advantage of their long, deep root systems that dug far within the earth to get the rare water from really, really deep. So they get smaller crops all along their life cycle, but for much, much longer, decades, almost centuries sometimes. Let's briefly go over what the life of a vine looks like. What does it feel like to go through life if you're a vine? Growers usually plant baby vines that are already 2 or 3 years old. Those are cribbed in a nursery. You buy them from a plant nursery because you can't really efficiently plant grape seeds just in the field and grow vines. That doesn't work like this. Those toddler vines won't really produce much grapes for the first 2 or 3 years in the vineyards, so until they reach 5 or 6 years old. From there, when vines are between 5 and say 15 years old, they are what we call young vines that will produce usually a lot of grapes, making wines that are simpler, more fruit-driven and not very concentrated. Just really youthful and punchy wines, but not much depth to them, like an adolescent, if you wish, type of wine. That's what young vines make. As a winemaker, we use those for entry-level wines in general. When vineyards get to 15, 20 years of age is really when you start obtaining more complexity, more maturity in the wines, more concentration, because the yields are lower. Vines have really deep root systems to extract all the goodness from the terroir, and they have more parenting experience to crop better grapes. after 30 years or so, depending on the region, vineyards are considered old vines, and you start getting really rich, complex, very interesting wines until the vineyards reach 40 or 50, 45 or 50 years old in wet climates, when you have to restart the cycle again and replant your vineyards because the vines are just tired. While if you are in a dry environment, well, vines will continue producing for another few decades, as we've seen. And that's, in short, your life cycle of a vineyard. I did make a detailed video on all the qualities and the benefits of old vines when it comes to the characteristics of the vinos themselves made from old vines. I'm deliberately keeping this video fairly short here because I don't want to repeat things that I've already explained. But if you want to learn more about how wines from old vines are better and why, watch this video right here. That's it for me today. Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon in the wonderful world of wine. Cheers!